Ireland has a long history of political violence, with the paramilitary tradition dating back to the 19th century. Since 1998, the level of paramilitary violence has decreased dramatically, although some splinter groups remain active. Irish nationalist paramilitaries have for decades now been left of centre, which is what makes the recent news story of a new paramilitary so interesting and worrying. A group styling themselves the IDA, or Irish Defence Army, were arrested in a joint border policing operation. The story begins 2 months ago when in County Laois, the Gardaí pulled over a suspicious BMW. Two men were promptly arrested when a search of their vehicle found they were carrying ingredients for bomb making. On one of the men's phones, a video was found. It showed four men in balaclavas announcing the formation of the IDA, which they planned to release after an attack on a mosque in Galway. A practice video. Two of the four men even took their disguises off before the footage cut out. Shortly after, raids were carried out by the PSNI in Northern Ireland and the Gardaí in the Republic in connection with the find. Eventually, more details began to emerge. The group numbered no more than 10 people, had developed a manifesto, an internal hierarchy and rules, and planned to adopt Irish Republican symbols. They also had no online footprint, showing a certain level of discipline. They even took oaths of allegiance to the group. They were in the process of planning attacks on Muslims, mosques, and refugee accommodation centres using explosives and Molotov cocktails. And this is all according to the Sunday Times article that I have down in the description. This is an interesting moment to mention that one of the men arrested in the car is in fact an immigrant himself, originally coming from Lithuania. The second man is from County Down in Northern Ireland. If you're Irish, Northern Irish, this story probably sounds familiar. Masked men declaring new paramilitary groups is something of a hobby for extremists in Ulster. But what makes this different is the political leanings of the group. Traditionally, Republican groups have been predominantly left-wing. It is the loyalist side that more usually tread into far-right extremism. The IDA represents a new streak of far-right terrorism in this regard. That's because they're combining a tradition of violent republicanism with anti-immigrant tropes about the Great Replacement theory and white erasure. In a sense, they fit into a wider rise of far-right groups across Europe and North America. The group were explicit in their political views by targeting only the non-white community in Ireland. Republican groups up until now have considered the British government and the Northern administration to be their main target. This situation has been years in the making. Starting since at least the COVID-19 pandemic, an activist far-right has been growing in Ireland. Since the end of the health crisis, they have shifted their focus to immigration. A small but vocal core of activists have organised anti-immigration protests across the country for several years now. Some of these have escalated into riots, such as in Dublin in 2023 or City West in 2025. A string of arson attacks on property housing or planned to house asylum seekers have also been burnt down. It seems somewhat inevitable, or close to it, that some from this group would turn to outright terrorism to further their agenda. The far right in Ireland is small and have failed to even get one seat in the Dáil, Ireland's parliament. They have not had any significant electoral gains, and that probably contributes to further radicalism, but does not justify it. One positive that can be taken from this story is the competency of the Gardaí. They managed to prevent the IDA from even carrying out one attack, and that should be commended. While the threat of far-right terrorism is real, it shouldn't be overestimated. To launch a sustained campaign of violence, such as the IRAs or UVFs, is incredibly difficult. As the Times pointed out, quote, modern surveillance tools available to the Gardaí and other police forces, combined with covert surveillance, informers, and the digital footprints people leave behind, give authorities unprecedented ability to trace and disrupt terrorist plots. Terrorism is just harder to do these days. The people who should be getting more blame for this situation are the government itself. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have overseen the conditions that have allowed the far right to gain traction. I'm talking, of course, about Ireland's housing crisis and the government's inactiveness in helping people that are genuinely hurting. They have also mismanaged our asylum system to the point that it struggles to carry out its job. And it seems instead of owning up to this, they have decided to shift their rhetoric. In a seeming attempt to cater to the anti-immigration vote, and thereby dodging their own failings, they have begun to blame immigration itself. There are too many immigrants in Ireland, said recently by Simon Harris, Ireland's Taoiseach. They have also supported watering down the rights of refugees at the EU level. They recently signed a statement in support of reinterpreting the European Court of Human Rights, along with Hungary and Slovakia. The Irish government has stated that the court has gone too far in its protections of refugees. This is another good moment to pause and reflect on hypocrisy. For the Irish government to criticise the ECHR is just insane. We have opposed Britain's attacks on the courts for years over issues relating to Northern Ireland, and now here we are attacking it ourselves. The government may think that by changing their long-standing views on migration, they can neuter the threat of the far right itself. But this runs the risk of endorsing far right sentiments and may reinforce those views amongst the public. They might even make some in the far right feel validated. You may think by changing tact you have defeated a political threat, but by adopting your opponent's policies and rhetoric, you have actually lost. You just haven't lost an election. It seems more terrorist threats from Ireland's far right are likely to emerge. As disgusting and tragic as that is, the real threat is in how the government will handle it. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I appreciate it as always. If you liked the video, be sure to subscribe and give it a like. It helps a lot. I often cover Irish politics, but I also cover history as well. So if you have any interest in either topics, be sure to check out my other videos. And with that, I'll see you next time.